Before a single tank rolled across the Rhine, a small, sweat-drenched, sleep-deprived band of men had already been there, digging, blasting, building, and bleeding. They were the sappers, combat engineers, the invisible backbone of the Allied advance. In the final, thunderous hours of the Second World War in Europe, they were the ones who made victory physically possible. This is not a story about generals and grand strategy. This is a story about mud-caked hands, gripping timber in the dark, about the smell of cordite and river water, about men who hadn't slept in 2 days wiring a bridge while machine gun fire skipped across the water beside them. This is Fieldcraft under the most unforgiving conditions imaginable, and the lessons it still carries for anyone who values skill, resilience, and the will to adapt. Bridging the impossible. When the Allied push into Germany accelerated in 1945, the Wehrmacht's retreating forces did everything they could to slow the tide, and their most effective weapon wasn't a gun, it was demolition. Every bridge became a potential roadblock, blown to rubble to deny Allied momentum. The sappers' answer was the Bailey Bridge, assembled by exhausted men in darkness, under fire, across water that didn't care how tired they were. The Royal Canadian Engineers' construction of the Melville Bridge, 1,373 feet of steel across the Rhine in just over 24 hours, stands as one of the most staggering feats of practical fieldcraft in military history. The principle at work is one every bushcrafter knows instinctively. When the environment denies you passage, you don't wait. You build. Their hands moved from memory in near-total darkness, the river's cold mineral smell mixing with cigarette smoke and machine oil. Fatigue was not an excuse, it was simply the weather. Clearing the kill zone. Other sappers moved 400 yards ahead of infantry in pitch darkness, meeting the enemy's final gifts, pressure plate mines buried in cart tracks, tripwires across doorways, demolition charges wired into bridges the Germans intended to destroy. Imagine, just for a moment, lying flat on cold, wet earth, your fingers searching the soil by touch alone for the slight resistance of a buried shoe mine. Darkness overhead, occasionally shattered by flares, forcing every man to freeze and become the ground itself. These men used skeletal probing rods at a slow 45-degree angle, feeling for resistance without triggering it. It was bushcraft at its most primal, reading terrain with your hands, trusting your body over your eyes. Each cleared lane was marked with white engineer's tape, threading a thin lifeline through darkness for the infantry that followed. Assault engineers, when the tools became weapons. In the final urban battles through shattered German towns, sappers became assault infantry, breaching fortified buildings and clearing bunkers with flamethrowers and demolition charges. Their urban fieldcraft was instinctive approach from angles that denied observation, create new entry points rather than using obvious doors, feel wall temperatures before touching handles. In the final hours before Germany's surrender, sappers were still dying in Czechoslovakia, clearing roads under direct fire minutes before official ceasefire times. The war ended on paper before it ended for them. The lesson that echoes. The sappers of 1945 left behind more than bridges and cleared roads. They left a masterclass in what prepared, skilled, determined people achieve when conditions are at their absolute worst. Every principle they lived by, adaptability, moving before you're ready, trusting your hands when your eyes can't help, belongs in the vocabulary of anyone serious about fieldcraft today. The next time you're pushing through a training session that's asking more than you thought you had left, remember the men who built a 1,373-foot bridge under fire in a single day. They weren't superhuman. They were just prepared, skilled, and unwilling to stop. If this episode gave you something worth carrying forward, share it with someone who values the same things you do. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles for more deep-dive documentary content where history, survival, and human endurance meet. The past has more to teach us than we've been told, and we're just getting started.